UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your hosts, Dr. Dean Bertram and Jen Durrell.
Well, hey, baby. How was your day?
It's pretty good. I worked today, so
Any
busy.
haunted stories or paranormal stories from your work?
No, not today. Nothing.
Oh.
No.
I hadn't actually asked you beforehand, so I didn't know if I was going to get a big story now or not.
No. What'd you do today?
I had two little gremlins running around my house, causing all kinds of havoc.
Yeah.
My 5-year-old daughter had a little friend over and they had a great day and they tore apart my living room, but it was fun.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what I guess it's about, being a kid.
Yeah.
Just going crazy and enjoying yourself. This weekend too, in Australia, is a holiday you probably don't really know a whole lot about. I remember I had an American university professor when I was at Sydney University. He was an expat and he was telling me about the first time he'd spent that holiday in Australia. And he was like, "What's the one holiday an American wouldn't understand, mate?" And I'm like, and I thought for a minute, I went, Queen's birthday weekend. And he's right, Queen's birthday weekend. And I guess the closest thing, when I was a kid, you used to be able to buy fireworks still in Australia. You can't anymore because it's, not as free as the great United States of America, where you can buy fireworks quite easily. But when I was a kid, you spent all your money in the lead up to Queen's birthday weekend on fireworks. And it was like a Guy Fawkes thing as well. I think we'd burn a guy and kids would burn themselves and, do crazy things with fireworks. But the date always means a lot to me now because it's actually both my grandmother's and my father's birthday were always around, and they both passed now. So whenever it's Queen's birthday weekend in Australia, I'm always quite conscious of that. But it was a fun holiday as a kid. I have the 4th of July now though, so
yes,
I'm certainly not complaining. Anyway, I'm so happy to have tonight's guest back. We've had him on twice before, so it goes to show how much we love him. For more than 50 years, he's been studying and practicing hypnosis in many forms and venues. He has been both a stage hypnotist and a hypnotherapist, or as he prefers to call it, a hypnoticoach. His first public appearance, or rather his first public performance, was at the 1964 New York World's Fair when he was only 16 years old. He studied with the New England Institute of Hypnotherapy, Hypnosis Motivation Institute, and British Hypnosis Research. He began doing hypnotherapy in 1974. Now he's in the process of writing 3 books. Be Still and Know, A Course in Christian Meditation, Calm, Peace, Relax, How to Improve Your Life in 30 Days with Self-Hypnosis, and Journey of a Soul Searcher, a Spiritual Autobiography. So I'm delighted to welcome back to the show, the one, the only, Edd Schultz. Mr. Schultz, welcome back to Talking Weird.
Ta-da! Here I am. Thank you. Nice to be back, Dean, Jen.
Well, it's wonderful to have you back. And the Tada's kind of quite telling as well. I think you've lived one of the most colorful and diverse lives of anybody I've ever known. I mean, we've had you on before talking about stage magic, and we've talked about when you were an exorcist for Ed and Lorraine Warren and your time working with the silver mind control kind of method. And we've done remote viewing type experiments with you. And tonight I think we have a little bit of an experiment, which we might lead into later whenever you're comfortable. But tell us a little bit about how you first got into hypnotism, Ed.
Okay. Well, when I was a kid growing up in the late 1950s, early 1960s, there were cartoons in which they had, Daffy Duck hypnotizing Porky Pig and things like that. And there was a TV show called The Man and the Challenge, starring George Nader, that was about a scientist who worked with human endurance. And in one of the episodes, there was a test pilot who crashed and ended up having some kind of PTSD or something and couldn't get back in a plane, didn't even want to get out, didn't want to walk and all that sort of stuff. And this scientist that I mentioned used hypnosis to help him overcome all of that. And he used one of these hypnotic spiral things, machines.
Oh, yeah.
And I was totally intrigued by that. Of course, I was about 10 or 11 at the time. And I was the kind of kid who, when I became interested in something, I would look for answers all over the place. I'd go to the library. My first stop was always the Encyclopedia Britannica Junior that we had in our living room. And of course, there was a short thing about hypnosis that didn't tell really very much. So I went to the local library, where the librarian said to me, when I asked about books on hypnosis, of course, remember, I'm about 11 years old, she said in her Southern accent, "Edward, hypnosis is too dangerous."
It's too dangerous.
And that was the response that I got when I was a kid from anyone that I questioned about hypnosis. It's too dangerous. It's too dangerous.
Mhm.
But then I was also interested in magic. I was, pulling rabbits out of hats and all that sort of stuff. And in one of the mail order magic catalogs that I had, there was a little thing about a book called 25 Lessons in Hypnotism for only 25 cents.
Hmm.
So, of course, I bought it. And I read it. It was a little booklet that actually, I think, had been written in the 1920s or 30s or something like that. And it gave the procedure that you go through to put someone in hypnosis, told you about different tests to see how deep they are, that sort of thing. So I decided to try it. And I had my best friend at the time, Stephen, come over to the house. I asked him if he would be willing to be my subject, and he said, sure. So I sat him down and I went through the whole procedure, all that you're getting sleepy, your eyelids are getting very heavy and all this sort of stuff. And he seemed to be going along with it. He had his eyes closed and all this business. Finally, it got to the point where I was supposed to test to see if he was actually hypnotized. And I said, okay, I want you to hold out your left hand, and it's now stiff and rigid. You cannot move your hand or your arm no matter what you do. And I started pushing on his arm, and it wouldn't go anywhere. So I thought, hey, maybe he's really hypnotized. So I said, okay, now you can put your arm down. But I thought maybe he's faking. He is my friend. He doesn't want to disappoint me. So test number 2. I said to him, Stephen, it's a very hot day and you're very thirsty. I gave him a glass and I said, this is a glass full of ice cold Coke. Drink it down and enjoy it. So he took the glass that I gave him and he drank it down and licked his lips, and there was a big smile on his face. Well, Dean, it wasn't Coca-Cola and it wasn't water. It was vinegar. And, he didn't twitch or anything like that. He didn't respond to the fact that it was vinegar. So I thought, hey, this must really be real. But test number 3 was on its way. I took his hand, see if we get it here, and I just told him that there was no feeling in his hand whatsoever. As I was doing this, I pulled up some skin on the back of his hand, and I had a safety pin in the other hand. I poked the safety pin through the skin in the back of his hand.
Ouch.
He didn't bleed. He didn't scream in pain. He didn't even flinch at all. So he sat there with his hand out with a safety pin through the back of it. And I thought, wow, this is real. And that was how I got my start in hypnosis. And I eventually met a stage hypnotist, man who went by the name of E.G. Matthews. And I watched his performance, and he became a sort of mentor of mine because he was a magician as well. So that's kind of how I learned how to do stage hypnosis, which was the first kind of hypnosis that I actually did. So that's how it all started.
Huh. And I know we talked a little bit about it before, but I know there's a considerable difference, I think, between stage hypnosis and therapeutic hypnosis, and maybe even the type of hypnotic coaching you did. Could you talk a little bit about the different uses or the different types of hypnosis?
Sure. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit, and then as kind of background, it might be good if I kind of define what hypnosis is and that
Sure.
sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But to answer your question directly, there is stage hypnosis and therapeutic hypnosis are very different in many ways. They're similar because they use basically the same techniques. First of all, my definition, the one that I use for hypnosis, is that it's a heightened state of suggestibility brought about through a process of relaxation, concentration, and cooperation. So when the stage hypnotist brings people up on the stage, he usually gives them some kind of little test, and we can talk about those later, before they're hypnotized. And then he puts them through the routine, and they are hypnotized. And often the stage hypnotists, and this is where I'm kind of embarrassed about the fact that I used to do it, but stage hypnotists use it for entertainment purposes. Mm-hmm. So they do ridiculous things. They make people, as I used to say, cluck like a dog and bark like a chicken. Mm-hmm. And you would sometimes tell people, "Oh, you're up in a plane, and the plane is going down, down, down very fast," and they'd be sitting in their chairs and bending over and panicking. Or, "Oh, it's very, very cold. You're in the Arctic," and they'd be shivering like crazy. Or, "It's very, very hot," and they'd be wiping their brow. You make them do all kinds of crazy, silly, stupid things. And there is a certain degree of hypnosis there, but the key to stage hypnosis is the fact that these people are in front of a group of people. It kind of appeals to your inner show-off. If you're up there and you're supposed to be hypnotized, and I tell you to cluck like a chicken, and you don't, you're going to look stupid. And you don't want to look stupid in front of all your friends. What you want to do is to do what I tell you to do, and then later say, "Did I do that?" So people who are involved in stage hypnosis are really just entertainers. And I think in a sense that takes away from the therapeutic use of hypnosis. Therapeutic hypnosis is used to improve or change behavior, to overcome fears and phobias, to stop smoking, to lose weight. And when you think about it, those, therapy is kind of like, it's not exactly medical stuff, but imagine a surgeon saying to a group of people, "Hey, let's have fun and let's do some surgery on each other." You're not going to do that. If you do something like that, "Hey, let me cut you open so you can see what it's like, and we can all have fun." You don't do that, because then when you bring them into the operating room, they're going to be scared skinny. They're going to think you're going to make, you're going to do these weird things. Same thing with hypnotherapy. What most people know about hypnosis is what they see on TV or in the movies.
Yeah.
And that stuff is mostly totally theater. Hypnosis is not mind control, where you can hypnotize people and cause them to become bank robbers or assassins or something like that. You just don't, in real hypnosis, you cannot be made to do something against your will, something that's against your own moral code. Now, that being said, let's say, for example, Dean, I were to hypnotize you and say, "Okay, Dean, tomorrow, I want you to go into the nearest bank, and I want you to tell them to give you all the money. Then I want you to take the money, bring it back home, and send it to me." Now, you would not do that. If I gave you that kind of command, you'd probably open your eyes and say, "Ed, what the heck are you doing? Or what do you want me to do?" However, if you really wanted to rob a bank and you really wanted to send me the money, you would do it. And I could help you do it even better with hypnosis. So, that's kind of the way it is. I mean, years ago, the CIA did experiments with hypnosis, trying to teach people to be assassins and spies and things like that. It didn't work. They abandoned the project. This is in the days when they were doing LSD and all that sort of other crazy, terrible stuff to people. So therapeutic hypnosis is when, as I said, people want to lose weight or stop smoking or overcome fears and phobias. And I would have, when I was practicing, I'm retired now, but when I was practicing, I would have people come into the office for several sessions, and I would put them into a hypnotic state through relaxation, concentration, and cooperation, give them various suggestions that would fit the particular thing that they were looking to change. And I would also, and this is a key for me, I would also teach them self-hypnosis, because part of the key to effective hypnosis is repetition. If you don't reinforce these hypnotic suggestions over and over again, they're just not going to take hold. It's sort of like learning to play tennis or pool or golf or something like that. You do it once or twice, you're never going to be Tiger Wood. But if you, like Tiger Wood would do, if you practice every day, if you train, you go over and over, so you develop muscle memory, then you're going to be successful. Same thing is true with hypnosis, only it's mental muscle memory instead of physical muscle memory, although there can be physical aspects to it depending on what it is you want to do. And you need to have people would, when people heard that I was a hypnotist, they would often say, "Oh, hypnotize me, I want to know what it's like." So I would say to them, the only circumstances under which I will hypnotize you is if you have a goal in mind, not just for me to show you what it's like, but if there's some kind of behavior that you want to improve or change, I'll be glad to help you do that. But I'm not going to do it just for the sake of doing it.
Was there one case perhaps that really stands out to you where you saw an incredible change in a patient, one that was you might remember more than any others that you could tell us about?
Sure. Well, actually, there's two I'll tell you quickly about.
Okay.
One was a man who actually had a food phobia. He was afraid of different kinds of, like pizza. He was disgusted by the idea of pizza, that oozy cheese and all that sort of stuff. He would only eat certain kinds of food. And I think it was like, basically bread and water and a few other things like that. A lot of kinds of food just grossed him out, or he was afraid of them. Well, we had a couple of sessions, and I would have him, and here's part of the key to hypnosis too, is using your imagination. I would have him imagine that he was eating food, different kinds of food, and enjoying it, including pizza. Well, his brother was the one who actually brought him to me. He did want to change his behavior. And after a couple of sessions and the self-hypnosis that I taught him, his brother called me up and he said, my brother wants to go out for pizza almost every night now.
Oh.
So he totally changed, a total 180-degree change. Before, he couldn't even think about pizza. And after he used the hypnosis, he loved pizza.
Huh.
So there's one. The other one that I want to mention was with a child. It was a little girl whose parents brought her to me, and they said, we have a problem with her. She will not urinate. She holds it all the time, and she gets kidney infections. She's just too excited about things that are going on, and she doesn't want to miss out on anything. So she holds it in, and she doesn't urinate. So I only had one session with her. Didn't teach her self-hypnosis, but had one session with her, and we used a sort of metaphor that I won't go into right now. And the parents called me up the next day and they said, wow, we don't believe it. She doesn't do what she did anymore. She pees when she needs to pee, and that's it. So it was, again, 180 degrees. These things can happen.
Now, you said before when I asked you the earlier question about the differences between stage and therapeutic, you said you wanted to maybe define hypnosis or talk a little bit more about it or something.
Right. One of the keys to understanding hypnosis, because hypnosis is a very controversial subject, obviously, and it's one that even scientists, doctors, whatever, don't agree on. The reason for that is because it has to do with your mind, not just your brain, but your mind. And philosophers and theologians and scientists for centuries have had trouble really talking concretely about the mind. But a lot of them have had theories. Now, this is basically kind of based on Carl Jung's theory of the conscious mind and the personal unconscious mind and the collective unconscious mind. We have, theoretically, your mind has two basic parts, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is that part of your mind that's immediately aware of your surroundings. And it uses your five physical senses, usually sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell, to bring in information, process the information, and act on it. Okay? So I see you, I have some idea what you're doing. Maybe you wave to me or something like that, and I wave back to you because I see that with my conscious mind. Now, there's another part to your mind, and that's the subconscious, sometimes called the unconscious mind. That's not, you're not, what's in there is not what you're immediately aware of. And it has a couple of major functions. One is to be a repository for all of your thoughts, feelings, ideas, dreams, all that sort of stuff. Sort of like the hard drive on your computer. Okay, it has all the files from all the things that you've ever done, and even things that you've become, that your subconscious mind became aware of, that your conscious mind didn't become aware of. For example, you go down the street, and well, okay, here's a good example. Years ago, back in the 70s, I used to drive to work maybe a mile or two every day, back and forth to the office and back to home. Well, one time I was watching, I think it was Gunsmoke on a Saturday night, and there was a character there named McBurney. And I thought, that's a strange name. I've never heard the name McBurney before. Well, the next day, when I was driving to work, I saw a mailbox along the side of the road, the route that I took every day. And guess what the name was on the mailbox? McBurney. Now, I had never consciously seen that before, but I probably did subconsciously, out of the corner of my eye or something like that. It just didn't register right away. Another example of how the subconscious mind works, Dean, when you and I were talking a couple of days ago about past life regression and that sort of stuff, I said that there was a woman from California, I think a psychologist maybe, who used to do a lot of this back in the 70s. And I got some of her tapes, and for the life of me, I just could not remember her name. Well, yesterday, I happened to be in the middle of the day. I was walking down the stairs, and all of a sudden, Helen Womack popped into my mind. I hadn't even been thinking about it, but that was her name. That was the name of the woman who did all of this past life regression. So it was in there, in my subconscious mind, but partially because I was trying with my conscious mind to bring that information up. And it was so long ago and probably so far back in my subconscious mind that I just couldn't get it up right away. But then when I relaxed and I didn't even think about it, my subconscious mind, which is working all the time, even when you're asleep, my subconscious mind said, Ed really wants to know the name of this woman so he can Google her and get some information or whatever. So I'm going to look in all the recesses of his mind, and I'm going to bring that information up to his conscious mind. So, I'll let him know what it is. And there you go. I mean, people have these kind of things happen all the time.
Yeah,
so,
that's like me every day.
But they're, as I said, in the subconscious mind, when you're a child, up until about the age of 6 or 7, your subconscious mind is basically like a tape recorder that's constantly on record. It's always bringing in information. It's not filtering anything. It's not criticizing anything. It's just taking all of that stuff in. When you get to around 7 or so, you begin to develop what's sometimes called a critical mind. That's the part of your mind that says, now, wait a minute. So when you're 4 or 5 years old, mom and dad say, oh, on Christmas Eve, Santa Claus, this big fat man with a beard and a red suit, comes down the chimney and puts presents under the tree. You fall for it, hook, line, and sinker. Mom and dad are adults. They're experts. They never lie to me. They're telling me the truth. And besides, I see all these presents in the morning, and they weren't there before. So when you're a kid, you believe all that stuff. But when you get to about age 7, the mind now has enough experience, enough development to say, now, wait a minute. Fat man coming down the chimney, giving presents to every boy and girl in the world on one night, in a sleigh with reindeer. Nah, come on. I don't buy this. So that critical mind is like a filter that filters out or filters in or whatever, a lot of the stuff that comes in consciously. So that then the stuff that's in your subconscious mind now has a value. And sometimes it just ignores things. If something is not important, it doesn't really think about it all that much, doesn't keep it there. But if something happens that's emotionally laden, it makes a big impression on the subconscious mind. Like when you're a child. Now, most of us, if I were to say the word dog, everybody has a slightly different reaction. If when you were brought up as a child, the family had a dog, nice, cuddly, friendly dog, that's what dog means to you. So when you hear the word dog, conscious mind does a sort of automatic Google search through the subconscious mind to see what's associated with dog, brings it up, and that's how you're going to respond to the dog. So if you had a nice family dog, okay, somebody says, I have a dog I'd like you to meet. Fine, no problem. But let's imagine that if when you were a kid, your first or your major experience of dog was the neighbor's pit bull who jumped over the fence, knocked you down, and bit you in the face.
Yeah.
That's certainly emotionally charged. So from that point on, you're probably going to have a fear of dogs because that's the impression that your subconscious mind has. So when the Google search is run, that's what comes up. All of these negative feelings. So somebody says dog, oh, no, dogs, I hate dogs. Oh, I'm afraid of dogs. Now, what we do in hypnosis and in hypnotherapy for people who have these kinds of fears and phobias is to go back and in a not really change those initial memories, but if you can imagine, in my office, I used to have a fish bowl that was filled with marbles, white marbles and black marbles. And if you imagine that white marbles are positive memories, black marbles are negative memories. Let's say you have a few negative memories, a few black marbles. If you put more and more white marbles into that bowl, pretty soon you just won't be able to see the black ones. So in hypnosis, by using the imagination, guided imagery, we allow you to create new positive images, positive thoughts about whatever it is you happen to be afraid of, like a dog. And we keep reinforcing those over and over again until finally the bad dog memories are so, they're so few now and they're pushed so far back into the mind because they've been replaced by all these positive ones, that's how you affect the change. It's kind of like, Dean, again, you and I were talking about the fear of speaking in public, which is one of the primary fears that most people have, which is kind of strong. It's even, it's higher on the list than fear of dogs and fear of spiders and snakes. all that kind of stuff. Well, you mentioned that you just kept doing it, right? You went out on the stage and some of the film festivals you did, and you began to talk to people in the audience. And although you didn't like to do it, you were kind of afraid to do it. But the more you did it, the more you felt comfortable doing it. So the more your subconscious mind said, hey, Dean, you can do this. And when you hear people clap and stuff like that, subconscious mind says, not only can you do it, Dean, but look, people like it when you do it. So then you like it when they like it, and that gives you more and more motivation to keep these positive memories so you could do it. And you're able to do it now with no problem, with no thought whatsoever, right?
It's like riding a bike.
Right. So in a way, you use it by doing that. You're using the same principles as hypnosis and hypnotherapy, except that in hypnotherapy, we're talking to the subconscious mind instead of the conscious mind. It's a lot quicker if you talk to the subconscious mind, because that's where the fears and phobias are, in the subconscious, not in the conscious mind.
That interests me. Yeah, that interests me when you talk about the importance of the subconscious mind to hypnosis. That leads me to think about things like alien abduction memories that are recovered, or satanic ritual abuse memories that are recovered, or past lives, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit, which are recovered under hypnosis. If hypnosis is something which is, I don't want to say interfering, which is accessing the subconscious mind, then as we all know, there's more than facts and realities in the subconscious mind. There's all kinds of cultural myths embedded there, and things we've watched on television, and stories we've overheard, or things we might even have forgotten hearing, but we watched it one night when we were falling asleep on TV, and we forgot we saw that alien abduction trope, but it's still stuck in there. So is that something that you, as somebody who has a long background in hypnosis, do you think that is impactful on the type on the stranger and weirder things that are recovered as memories when people undergo some type of regression therapy?
Yes, I would say definitely. And it when you, again, getting back to Carl Jung and his idea of the collective unconscious, he also felt that your subconscious mind has, not only within your subconscious mind, but kind of out here around us, is a collective unconscious, which is a collection basically of all the knowledge of the universe, all of the experience that all cultures have had. And he felt that it was filled with archetypes, which are kind of iconic symbols of different things, like the symbol of the mother. Usually we feel good about mother because we were nurtured by our mothers. So there's ingrained in all societies, all cultures, this image of the mother. And that comes out in other ways, Virgin Mary, that kind of thing. And even that film that we worked on, Virgin Forest, has some of that mother, image in there. And I had an instance that I think shows what this collective unconscious is like. When my son, who is now in his 40s, was about, I don't know, maybe 2 years old, 3 years old, something like that. He was in the car. I happened to go into a CVS or something like that and buy some things, and bought some candy and whatever. And it was around Halloween time. And they had these plastic devil horns that you could put on your head with suction cups. Okay. So I bought those just for fun. Well, I went back to the car. I gave my son some candy and I smiled at him and whatever. Then I turned around away from him and I put these horns on my forehead, and I turned around to him and smiled, and he screamed bloody murder. He was so scared.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I mean, he didn't know what the devil was or anything like that. He was just a baby at that time. But when I did a little bit more research about that, I discovered that even animals have this kind of archetypal fear of this.
Mhm.
Now, if you imagine like a lion tamer, what does a lion tamer do sometimes? They hold up, they have a whip, but they also have a chair.
Mhm.
Okay. And a chair has legs, and
Huh.
legs look like horns
Huh.
from your enemy. So even within their collective unconscious, there's this idea of danger from this kind of thing. So, that gives us who? The devil has horns, bulls have horns. This is a kind of archetypal thing. So it's very possible, and there's another direction I want to go in here too. It's very possible that when people have these supposed repressed memories about, satanic abuse or alien abduction or things like that, it may be that part of that is just some of this collective unconscious bubbling up. It may be that they didn't really have, these are not really repressed memories, but there's something that's created, like your dreams. You dream every night. Everybody dreams every night of their lives. We just don't remember them all.
Mm.
But when you're dreaming, you're totally in the world of the subconscious mind. And you dream in pictures, you dream in symbols. How many people, raise your hands, how many people have flying dreams? How many people have dreams where, I have to relieve myself, but I can't find the room. I can't find one anywhere. You have these kind of dreams. Well, why do you have them? Well, the second one that I just mentioned, the needing to relieve yourself, is probably because you really do have to. And your subconscious mind is trying to tell your conscious mind, get out of bed and do what you need to do. But it may be that some of this, these supposed repressed memories, are just part of the collective unconscious bubbling up. It may be that you experienced or saw something that reminded you, like you said a moment ago, Dean, of a movie or a TV show or something like that. This is one of the difficulties with using hypnosis in therapy for past lives and for repressed memories, and even forensic hypnosis that the police will often use to bring up memories of things that happened in a crime scene and things like that. You cannot rely on these. For one thing, it's extremely difficult, if not sometimes impossible, to empirically verify that this is a real memory, that this is something that actually happened to you and that you've repressed it. It may be that it didn't happen to you at all. Maybe it happened to somebody else. And another aspect of this that I said I wanted to get to is I remember hearing it one time, and I don't remember whether this was a Jung thing or a Silva method thing or what, but someone said, somewhere I learned that when you are in an altered state of consciousness, which is when you're dreaming or when you're in hypnosis, you have access to all the knowledge of the universe. That's a pretty kind of startling claim to make. But, this parapsychology has studied this kind of thing forever. I mean, that's the idea behind telepathy and clairvoyance and even the remote viewing that I did with you folks last time, and that I've done several times with you, Dean. I mean, how on earth would I know things like that? How on earth could I see things like that? There's no physical explanation. Now, if I come out with that kind of information and you can show me what it was you were looking at, like Jen showed me her pyramid thing, then we can verify, okay, what I saw was right or was accurate to a degree or not. But when it comes to repressed memories, how can you prove that you were abducted by an alien? Where's the videotape of you? Who had their cell phone out when you were abducted? Nobody. But I have these puncture marks on my arm. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that you were abducted by an alien. that those puncture marks could be anything. Those can even be created by hypnosis. We can talk about that later. I worked for a while in a church filled with people who felt that they had been satanically abused by a previous pastor. I don't know. There was very little physical evidence, forensic evidence. They had a police investigation, and they came up with very little. But there were people who swore that they had been abused. Some of them had, and a lot of them had repressed memories. Nobody knew that they had been abused until after this guy was gone, and people were beginning to remember these things. Well, I don't know. How can you prove something like that? It's as hard to prove that sometimes as it is to prove that there's a God. If you use your 5 physical senses to try to prove that there's a God, sight, you see God? No. Hearing, does God talk to your eardrums? No. Touch, can you touch God? No. Can you smell God? No. Can you taste God? No. There's no God because I can't prove it. Well, we believe, many of us, that God is real, but God is a spiritual being, not a physical being. So you're not going to be able to experience God with your physical senses. You need to experience God with your psychic and spiritual senses, because that's the level on which, that's the domain in which God exists. Well, if that whole spiritual domain does exist out there, why can't we tap into it? And we do. I mean, we've shown throughout history that people can tap into that psychic, spiritual domain that's out there, that whole realm. And so maybe some of these abductions were real, but if they were, you can't verify it.
No.
And maybe there are a whole bunch of people, just in a sense, now that this is something I'm just thinking of now, in a sense, some of the people who have repressed memories may be, there's a kind of parallel with stage hypnosis. Maybe there's something else that's going on in their life. They don't have an explanation for it. And so they come up with one. Their subconscious mind comes up with a good one. Alien abduction, past life, something like that. That means I don't have to take responsibility for it. Remember when we were talking about demons before an exorcism? The devil made me do it.
Yeah.
The aliens made me do it. I did this, or this happened to me because I was in Cleopatra's, the chain of command somewhere. I was a bad guy and I whipped slaves. So nowadays I get backaches because I used to whip people in the back. That's what some people think. And that's what sometimes past life regression is based on. The idea that the things you're suffering with now were caused in a previous life. And if you go back to the previous life and understand it or whatever, then maybe it won't happen now. Well, you don't know. And even if this idea that we can tap into this collective unconscious and other people's memories, other people's experiences are out there, kind of like if you think about the internet, here am I, a guy in Virginia, and if I sit down on my computer, what do I have? In a sense, access to all the knowledge in the universe, at least all the knowledge that's been written down on the internet, and that's from millions and millions of people all over the world. That's awesome. Okay? Now, if that can happen in the physical realm, maybe the same thing is happening in this psychic, spiritual realm. Maybe when we recall past lives, it's not our past lives that we're recalling. It's not a matter of reincarnation, but in some way or another, our subconscious mind has done a Google search and found the memories of John Smith, who died in a plane crash in 1974 in such and such a place. And somehow or another, I'm able to reach out. Tesla said that he felt that your mind, your brain were like a radio receiver. And you can get memories and experiences from all over the cosmos through that.
Yep.
Could be.
Yeah, that's a fascinating interpretation on what past life
Mhm.
regressions might be or
Yeah.
might be behind them. And I suspect there is an awful lot of the actual power of our own imaginations feeding into these things as well. But speaking of power of imagination, that was an intentional segue by me, by the way. You were going to
Okay.
do a little experiment of the power of imagination tonight, I
Yes.
believe, Ed.
Yep. We can do that anytime you're ready.
Let's go.
Okay. You're the boss, applesauce. Let me first tell everybody who's out there, I am not going to hypnotize you right now. But what I'm going to do is demonstrate to you one of the principles that we use in hypnosis and hypnotherapy, which is using the power of your own imagination to affect changes in your body. Okay? So if you're sitting in a relatively comfortable position, I'd like you to close your eyes. Just close your eyes and relax for a moment. And what I'd like you to do is use your imagination and picture in front of you that there's a wooden cutting board. And onto this wooden cutting board, I want you to imagine that you now place a big, yellow, sour, juicy lemon. Now, in your other hand, you have a knife. And I'd like you to imagine that you cut right into the center of this big, yellow, sour, juicy lemon. You cut it in two, push part of it away. So now you have half of a big, sour, yellow, juicy lemon in your hand. Now take that knife, and I want you to cut a slice, maybe about 1/4 of an inch, off that big, yellow, sour, juicy lemon. Let that lemon wedge drop onto the board, and I'd like you to take the knife and cut that in two. So you have 2 wedges of sour, juicy lemon. Now I'd like you to imagine that you pick up one of those wedges. You open your mouth and you put that sour, juicy lemon wedge into your mouth and you sink your teeth into it. And as you do, you can taste that sour, juicy lemon juice just squirting into your mouth, all around your tongue, even down the back of your throat. That big, yellow, sour, juicy lemon. Okay. Now I'd like you to open your eyes. Open your eyes, wide awake, feeling fine and in perfect health. Okay, now I'm willing to bet that many people out there, if I were to ask you what just happened in your mouth, probably many people would say, I could taste lemon. My mouth began to water. My lips started to pucker, even if as I'm talking to you. My mouth is watering. Pardon me. But if we could see all the people out there who are listening, and I asked people to raise their hand, I bet a whole bunch of them would raise their hands. What about you, Dean, Jen? Did your mouth start to water? Did you?
Yeah, I was producing
it?
more saliva when you.
Right,
That's
exactly.
Saliva.
That's my point. Because if I had said to you 5 minutes ago, okay, Dean, Jen, listeners, I want you to salivate for me. Could you do it? No. But my goal was to have you salivate. So what I did was use your subconscious mind, because you begin to get access to your subconscious mind as soon as you close your eyes and you relax. Remember, I said hypnosis is a heightened state of suggestibility brought about through relaxation, concentration, and cooperation. So in a sense, in a very broad sense, you were just hypnotized because you were relaxed. You were concentrating on the lemon, and you were cooperating with me by imagining these things. So when you did that, your subconscious mind said, hey, I remember what it's like to have a lemon in my mouth. Now I know what the body needs to do, because I think, because the subconscious mind doesn't always know the difference between reality and fantasy. I think there's a lemon in my mouth now because I have all these memories of lemon. So what am I going to do? I have to salivate.
Yeah.
There you go. So
Fasc-
that's one of the things that we do. Like this guy who didn't like the different kinds of food, as I had him imagine that he was eating food that he liked and that he enjoyed, that's what we were saying to his subconscious mind, that food is okay. You enjoy it. And we repeated that over and over. This is one of the reasons why I kept repeating big, yellow, sour, juicy lemon. Those words, sour and juicy, conjured up in your subconscious mind memories of sour and juicy. There you go.
and then you get the physiological response because you keep.
Yeah.
That's
hearing
right.
it.
So hypnotherapy can be used to stop, to control pain, for one thing. Sometimes it can be used to control bleeding. It's been used in childbirth as a form of anesthesia. I have an aunt who was a nurse, and that's how she gave birth to her children. She had no anesthesia whatsoever. She just went into a hypnotic state, and whoosh, there they were.
Oh, wow.
So, and the other side of this, in a sense, is there have even been cases where a hypnotist can tell a subject, okay, I want you to open your hand, palm up like this, and I'm going to place in the palm of your hand a burning hot coal. It's a burning hot coal. Although you won't feel pain from it, it's a burning hot coal, and their hand begins to blister.
Jeez.
Because again, the imagination is saying, what do we do? It's saying to the body, what do we do when there's a burning hot coal in our hand? We rush blood to that point in the body, and we blister to protect the body, etc. So there you go.
By the way, Ed, my mother just sent me a Facebook message. My mother and my stepfather always watch the show, and she said that she did the experiment and she did get a lot of saliva in her mouth.
There you go. Thanks,
So-
Mom.
there's another person who's confirming. Did you, before I ask Ed a final question, Jen, did you have anything to ask about hypnosis? Because I know I've been asking most of the questions tonight.
Well, I do know that some people have been hypnotized, but usually it doesn't last very long, or some people just don't know how to relax to actually have it work. I mean, have you ran into any of those two?
Okay. Yes. I did have a client once who was suffering from anxiety, and she came to get some help for that. But she was so anxious that she could never relax. I would tell her, for example, I'd like you to, because when I started the induction, I would always have people close their eyes, because when you close your eyes, it's easier to relax. If you have your eyes open, you might be looking at things around my office, diplomas on the wall and stuff like that. And then it's hard to relax. So I would say, please close your eyes. Well, she couldn't even close her eyes. She was so anxious. She thought, if I close my eyes, what's going to happen?
Right.
So I really was not able to help her because she was just too anxious. So I, suggested that she go see a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist or something like that. I really couldn't help her. Another thing that you mentioned a little bit, you don't know how long people can be hypnotized, that sort of thing.
Yeah, how long it works.
It lasts as long as you need it to last. If I were, for example, let's say, Jen, you were one of my clients, and I hypnotized you because we were going to do some kind of weight loss thing or something like that. And I put you into a state of hypnosis and gave you a few suggestions. And then I got up and left the room and stayed away. Some people have this fear of hypnosis. They say, maybe I'd be stuck in hypnosis and never wake up. What would happen if the hypnotist had a heart attack and he died and he couldn't take me out of it? Well, the truth of the matter is, If that happened, the hypnotic state would turn into a normal sleep state and you would wake up in a few minutes.
Huh.
Nobody has ever been stuck in hypnosis. Nobody's ever died because of hypnosis.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. And when you're in hypnosis, it's not a matter of mind control. It's not my mind controlling your mind. Because remember, relaxation, concentration, cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have cooperation, hypnosis is not going to happen.
Yeah.
I had a client once that I was telling Dean about the other day. He came to me because he said, my doctor says I need to stop smoking. My wife says I need to stop smoking. So I need to stop smoking.
Yeah.
And I want you to make me stop smoking with hypnosis. I said, do you want to stop smoking? And he said, no, I don't want to stop smoking. I like it, but I want you to make me stop smoking. And I said, you're wasting your money.
Yeah.
Because if you don't want it, if you don't want this end goal, of course you're not going to get it because you're not going to cooperate with me. It's just like, you go to a doctor, you say, I have a backache. The doctor says, okay, here's a prescription. I want you to fill this prescription and take the pills. Well, if you don't fill the prescription, or even if you do fill the prescription and you don't take the pills, you're not going to get better.
Yeah.
You have to cooperate with the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You have to fill the prescription and take the pills. Then you're going to be okay. But the doctor is not going to spoon feed the pills to you. You don't say to your doctor, hey, doc, I want you to give me a prescription and I want you to be with me every day to take the pills because I'm not going to take them myself. You have to put them in my mouth. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
So cooperation is really a key element. So in that sense, in one sense, and this is, again, it's all a very kind of blurry area. Sometimes it's a semantic thing. You cannot hypnotize a person against their will, but you can hypnotize a person without them knowing it to a certain degree, because we go in and out of hypnosis all day long. We don't realize that, but imagine you're driving someplace, okay? You're on a freeway and you miss your exit. Why did you miss your exit? Because you were concentrating on the scenery or something like that. In a sense, you were hypnotized.
Yeah.
Your conscious mind was not engaged with your surroundings as much as your subconscious mind was engaged with the beauty of nature and all that kind of stuff. So you missed exit 57. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah.
I was hypnotized.
Yeah.
Or you fall asleep, or you drive home and you think to yourself, when you get home, you say, gee, my watch says it took me an hour to get home, but it seems like it was only about 10 minutes. What happened? I don't remember driving. Well, that's a form of hypnosis. It's a disengaging of your conscious mind and letting your subconscious mind take over.
And now as we start to wind down, Ed, I'd love to hear a little bit about your upcoming books and also how anybody in the audience who wants to keep an eye on the releases, how they can follow you maybe on a social media site or something.
Okay. Well, I'll answer your second question first. Excuse me. I don't have a big sour juicy lemon here to anyway. I do have a Facebook page. It's not terribly active right now because, as I said, I'm retired and I don't take clients. But if people want to learn about the books that are coming up and other stuff like that, if you go to Facebook and you put in Hypnoticoach, that's one word with one hypnotic coach, Hypnoticoach, one word there, not two words, not hypnotic coach, but Hypnoticoach. You can find me on Facebook there. I do have an email address that I don't use very much now. That's hypnoticoach@gmail.com. So if people wanted to contact me directly, that would be the best way to do it. The books, I'm finally getting around to, there's actually 3 books that I'm working on. The first one is called Be Still and Know. It's a 6-part course in Christian meditation. because meditation is very much related to hypnosis and self-hypnosis. And that, we're not going to get into that now, but that's the first book, Be Still and Know. I'm hoping to have that available through Amazon by the end of this month. The second book that I'll be working on, which I hope the end of July will be available, is called Calm, Peace, Relax: How to Improve or Change Your Life in 30 Days. And it's basically a workbook on how to use self-hypnosis to change your life. And it tells you how to do it in 30 days. That's why I call it that. But that's based on a lot of the things that I used to teach my clients. And by the way, just a little aside, don't get self-hypnosis CDs or MP3s or things like that. That is not self-hypnosis. There's heterohypnosis and there's self-hypnosis. Self-hypnosis is when you do it 100% yourself. Heterohypnosis is when there's somebody else, whether it's me live or me on a tape or a CD or an iTunes thing. That's not self-hypnosis. That's somebody else hypnotizing you. Yeah. Okay. Third book is called Soul Searcher, A Journey of a Soul Searcher. And it's basically my spiritual autobiography, tracing my life from the time that I was a kid, interested in magic and in spiritualism, mediumship and Edgar Cayce and all of that good stuff, and how I became interested in hypnosis. And then later on, how I got into silver mind control and hypnotherapy and Christian meditation and spirituality and even exorcism and possession and all of that good stuff. Because as Dean, as you said, I've had an adventurous life. That's for sure. We won't even talk about the non-weird parts of my life. As a teacher, as an ADHD coach, as an adjunct faculty member, as a writer, editor, publisher. We won't talk about those. But they're all part of the adventure, because that's the way I see life. It's a big adventure.
Yes.
And some of it is weird. Some of it is really weird. Right. And some of it's unexplainable. UFOs, we never got to UFOs.
I was only thinking we didn't get to you. Next time we're going to have you back again. We'll have to have you back too after a couple of the books have dropped so we can talk a little bit about them. I'm looking forward to all of them and I'll read all of them. But the Soul Searcher one, I'll be honest, I absolutely can't wait to read your spiritual autobiography.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. That would be fantastic.
I hope. And the reason that I'm writing all of these books is because it's my way of trying to help make this a better world. Right now, we live with so much chaos and confusion. I mean, no wonder people are going nuts and whatever, because of all the things that are going on in the world. Now, I can't do anything politically or anything like that to help with that. But what I think I can do is to help people through these books, and even through doing programs like this, is to help people make a difference in their own individual lives. Because I think that's where it starts, within each one of us. We can make a difference in our lives, even if we can't make a difference in other people's lives. Because when we make a difference in our lives, we don't live in a vacuum. We affect other people by how we behave. So
I think you have to be able to take care of your own reality before you try to fix a broader reality. But you're certainly a calming presence, Ed. So I can't imagine that your books and any appearances will do anything but help the people who see you or read your material or get in contact with you. But we'll have you back on again soon. And until then, my friend, keep it weird.
I shall. Thank you, Dean, and thank you, Jen. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Always is a pleasure to have you, Ed.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing that happens in my week. But fun.
Thank you for joining us tonight. If you're interested in checking out more episodes, you can find us at talkingweird.com. If you haven't already, please like the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talking Weird Podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to Talking Weird. We're available on most podcast platforms and YouTube. And if you do enjoy the show, please leave us a review. Dean and I would really appreciate it. Until then, stay safe and keep it weird.